and be upfront that, so I think Bill sort of characterized this afternoon for future researchers. Mine is probably targeted a little bit more towards current researchers, I would say, but I think undergraduates will learn a lot about how, we'll learn a lot, so I'll say. Learn a lot about a lot of things, hopefully. But so my name is Ulrica Wilson. My main job is at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, but I also sort of have this remote position at one of the institutes, the NSF-funded math institutes, and this one is the Institute for Computational and Experimental Research in Mathematics at Brown University. So I'm in Providence a lot. So what I'm wanting to do today is really try to generate a discussion. I'm going to say a little bit about the math institutes, what kind of activities happen at the institutes, and how you can participate in these opportunities. Because I think my goal is to understand why we don't participate as much as I'd like for us to participate in these really, really cool programs. I'm curious, I'd love to hear from you. If you've ever tried, ever thought about it, what's the challenges? What can we do to help facilitate you spending time at an institute? And then if you haven't heard about these spaces, then I'm glad I'm at the front end of the CAARMS conference because I'd love to talk to you more about what goes on here. So I'm just going to be upfront real quick. There's a lot of undergraduates here and I sort of wasn't prepared for that. But there are undergraduate programs going on at institutes. I'm not going to talk about them in this space, but I can talk about them offline if you're interested. But I think the undergraduates here are already in a summer program, so the way you got into that summer program is how you get into these summer programs. But anyway, so about 40 years ago, NSF put out a call for math institutes. So there was literally a solicitation for people to get funding to build an institute. It was motivated by the Institute of Advanced Study that already existed. They wanted some concentrated places to help move mathematics along more quickly, just really do it. So a couple of people responded to that call, and in 1981, the first two institutes were born. If you don't count IAS, so I'm sort of not counting IAS, even though they get institute money now. So the first two were MSRI in Berkeley, California, and IMA in Minnesota and stuff, and they both still exist. Since then, there's 8 institutes all over the country. Brown, the one at Brown that I work for is the Baby Institute. We're the newest institute. We're like 6-7 years old. I do want this to be a discussion, so feel free to just completely interrupt me. I can go through all 10 slides or just 2 slides, I don't care. So the objective, so NSF goes to Congress and says, we want these institutes, we think they're valuable, we want more and more money for them, and these are our 9 objectives for having institutes. So NSF has to, with these 8 institutes, give evidence that they're achieving these sort of 9 objectives. So no single institute has to do all 9 things, but across the board, their portfolio, I can't tell if you guys can see this, but the idea is, if a new result just happened, broad dissemination. Institutes can easily get a lot of people in their space really quickly, big numbers, they're well staffed, and sort of this is one of the things we do. Encourage research. If there's a new question out there, we can get a program together quickly, or sometimes it takes us longer because there are more moving parts, but encourage transformative and timely research. Provide early career opportunities. Most of the institutes, and certainly broadly, we find strategic ways to really encourage graduate students, postdocs, so early career broadly defined, including undergraduates. So there's specific things probably in each of our programs that target early career researchers. Support communication with industry and NAP. So NSA is not on there, but yeah, government's not on there, but we do occasionally are allowed to talk to government agencies. But industries and national labs are absolutely involved. I think most of our boards involve people from industry and national labs. I think that's the easiest way that translates, but that means a lot because that means they sort of influence the science that we do, the math that we do. Provide infrastructure for collaborations. We want to be spaces for you to come together and do a collaboration, start new collaborations from an existing program, or maybe just get together with people you're already collaborating with, and you can just get funding to sit in a room together for a week or two, and you know, depending on the facilities, we can support whatever you need. Involve underrepresented groups. So this is one of the 9 objectives of the Institute's program, is to make sure we are involved in this. And so there's different ways that happens, but I want to, so partly my goal in giving this talk today is to, or leading a discussion today, is to talk about how we can increase those numbers, engage and educate the public. So there's lots, so we do these public lectures sometimes. In DC, MSRI's been doing these Math Fest on the mall, and so there are these big public things we do to try to educate, interdisciplinary activities, and international collaboration. So I know lots of times when people think of NSF, it's got to be just US stuff, but we are allowed, there is some notion that it's important to, that mathematics is global and stuff. So these are the 9 objectives that we're always thinking of. I'm putting this up here, I'm going to keep coming back to this and stuff, and so that was important. So what I'm gonna share some concrete information about participating in institutes today. And so so there's 8 institutes, so I guess but these 6 were the ones that got together and submitted some information that's going to be contained in my presentation today, some really concrete information. So I think that's important to note, because if I say something and then you realize, oh, that's not true at this institute, it's because they weren't up here, right? So, okay. Pretty soon I'm sure I'll have all 8. I sort of made them respond to my questions really late, so that's the only reason the other 2 aren't up here. Okay, so throughout this discussion, I'm going to refer to short programs and long programs. So this is sort of generic language. By short, I usually mean 1 or 2 weeks. In our world, short means you're probably staying at a hotel, and long means we got to facilitate some sort of rental housing type thing. You're there long enough that a hotel doesn't make sense and stuff. So we constantly think in terms of short and long, but so I'm going to talk about short programs and long programs and those logistics. So who gets to participate in these things? So pretty much everybody. I hope this feels like everybody. Graduate students, postdocs. So again, I'm just not talking about undergraduates right now, but so there's sort of special programs. Basically, I'm talking about our core grant here. And so actually for most of our programs, undergraduates don't participate in our main activities. We have sort of separate activities for that. So pretty much everybody. The long program, so the reason why graduate students here is sort of not as bold is because graduate students aren't eligible for all of the long programs. Most, so I have it there, but one of the institutes, I may not remember, or maybe I'm going to on purpose not remember, actually graduate students cannot participate in long programs. And even if you do, with the long programs, that means you're like spending a semester away from graduate school, right? So that's a pretty big deal. So you absolutely need your thesis advisor to sign off on it. It's got to make sense. Like, you shouldn't come to an institute for a semester and then, I don't know, miss a qualifying exam or something, right? It's got to make sense. So often graduate students, particularly in the long program, their thesis advisor is participating, or they know an organizer, and that's not always the case, but you got to make sense of why you're spending time away from your graduate program. So these are the people who participate in all of our programs, short or long. So now I want to say a little bit about what the short programs typically do. So I feel like it sort of ranges between these 2 things. Basically, there are short programs at institutes where you meet with existing collaborators, like Most of us already have a group of collaborators. Maybe there's one other person that you'd like to include, but you haven't had the time to spend with them. You can write a proposal to spend a week or two at an institute and write down the list of people that you're already working with. Maybe they're all existing collaborators, maybe one or two are new. The problem, these are some of the easiest proposals to actually submit, and then you get funding. So the tricky part about institutes, we all call this opportunity something different at each institute. So we don't speak the same language, and so that's what makes it a pain, yes?
Is there a minimum
number? So from institute to institute it may change. Broadly, I'd say 4 is the minimum. I think most of them say 4 to 6. My guess is they'd reach it up to 3 sounds too small to me, but 4, I mean, that's pretty good, right? And if you get 10, it's too big, but you can maybe make a case for 8, you know. Mm-hmm.
If you're submitting one of these proposals, do the proposals need to be different for different institutes?
Right.
Or is there a general kind of...
That's a great question. Yes, they're different for different institutes. They basically are the same thing. They're going to ask you what you want to work on in the list of people, why it's important, you know, standard stuff. But each of our institutes, so all of them are going to say something like, why here? Like, why at ICERM, why at MSRI, why, but, you know, you answer it, you know, like, so for us, you know, we, part of our mission that makes us different from the other institutes is sort of computational aspects, experimental pieces. So if you can make a case around that, that's tied to our mission, we get really, really excited. But yeah, it'll vary. If it's tied, if there's a long program going on next semester that's similar to the problem you want to work on, that would be a compelling reason. Doesn't have to be. It can be completely separate though. Just your idea, what you've been working on, and you want the space to do it. I have a slide for that, but I'm going to answer, I mean, travel, hotel, the accommodations while you're there, most family support, dependent care type support. What am I missing? Many meal allowances, you know. So if it's a short program, you know, that absolutely falls in our short program. So we just direct bill to a hotel and, you know. Great question. So, yeah, no, non-academic researchers are included. You engaged in the problem. So absolutely not. I think that's a big thing I want. And also, mathematics loosely defined, okay? So, mathematical science, I mean, so we have physicists in this, computer scientists in them.
Why don't you be a 501c nonprofit?
No, no. I mean, so you can be, but you don't have to be. Yeah. People from Apple come. I mean, yeah, just you're engaged in the work. And so we even had an independent, anyway, okay. So short programs, so, you know, meet with existing collaborators. The other end of the scale there is just learn about a new topic. So we have these week-long intensive programs where, you know, get to know about this. So you can kind of not know a whole lot about the topic, but you're interested, you're loosely tied, you've been wanting to know a little bit more about something. So we call those workshops. We tend to call those workshops. And so a workshop might be tied to a semester-long program. It might be completely independent. They happen in the summer, they happen during the academic year, all over the place, but there are week-long activities. I think there's some that might be 2 weeks, but mostly they're 1 week. And then there's in between. There's stuff in between. Mm-hmm.
And can it be also international collaboration?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you for asking that. Yes. So, right. So, foreign for us is defined by institution, not by citizenship, by the way. That threw me off when I started working at ICERM. So we can have US citizens that are, their home institution is in Europe, they're considered international and foreign. So of course, if the whole group is international, that's probably a problem, right? Okay, because it is NSF and stuff. But one of the 9 objectives was building international collaborations. That's why I put that up there. So that's absolutely okay, absolutely okay. And then there's just workshops, short programs that do both of these things in varying degrees, okay? So there might be a workshop about learning a new topic, but that particular one is trying to build collaborations also. So it just varies all over the place. So long programs, so these tend to be semester to a whole year, so much bigger commitment from your time. And then they involve lots of activities. There tends to be opening and closing events, and then smaller short programs, workshops all throughout. So at ICERM we call these semester workshops, but so they're tied to the program. So some people who aren't there for the long program may come in for just the short piece. So they're intended to be integrated but can stand alone also. So that's going on. Seminars, just like that would happen at any academic department, and, you know, cool talks, people coming in to give a cool talk. Something like a tutorial, like, hey, that target the early career, because one of the 9 objectives is to do specific things for early career. Sometimes there's something going on in an area and they want new people participating in the problem. So, you know, a long program may have lots of tutorials. They tend to happen at the beginning. Working discussion groups, so you might break up. A long program may have lots and lots of people, so, you know, there might be ways to form these subgroups that might be part of the strategy. Long programs tend to be really, really organized, and so there's lots of things going on. What we don't want is you to show up for a semester and sort of feel lost. So yeah, long-term and short-term participants. Even if something is a whole semester, I need to be careful, especially since I'm being recorded. You should commit to the whole program, but the nature of a long program, if you had already committed to be someplace else in a week in the middle of the long program, we can make that work, fly you back home, let you come back, you know. So we get that there's other things going on. Typically, you sort of, you know, long programs, so I'll say that in a minute, disseminate, so that one of the things that might happen in a long program is the opportunity to disseminate recent results going on, build collaborations, specific activities to encourage, engage new researchers. Here are some upcoming long programs. So what I'm not going to talk about today, well, I'll talk about a little bit, is all the doggone opportunities. There's a ton. I mean, there's 8 institutes. There's stuff going on at each of them all the time. I think one of the hardest things is finding the opportunity that's out there. So I'm going to say a little bit about that at the end and stuff, but there's really cool things happening. Let's see. So application components. What's in an application? Everybody has this in their application, so that's what this box is. Unfortunately, you got to register. We tend to all have something like math jobs, some version of math jobs or math programs. Some of you guys might have applied to your summer REUs math program, some sort of internal management system where you have to log on, get a username and password, and input your life story a little bit in it. So that's a little bit of a pain. Once you do that once at an institute, you're there forever. So I don't want that to slow you down. You haven't even talked about the particular program yet, and you're like registering all this stuff, right? And it does include demographic information. Everybody asks demographic information. Of course, it's optional. I want to encourage everybody to fill that out, but again, I'm recorded, so I shouldn't put pressure on you to fill it out. But it is important. And then for all of the applications, you do 2 of these 3 typically. So 2 of these 3. Not everybody asks for a CV. Most do. Lots of it's a CV and a statement of interest. Sometimes it's just a CV and names of references. So it just sort of varies. You can just list names and why you want to be at the institute. I'm going to say more about that later. If it's the collaborations piece, existing collaborations, the project description, list of collaborators, of course. So for graduate students and postdocs, for the early career piece, you will have to do a letter of recommendation. If you're not a graduate student postdoc, there's no letters of recommendation. You just, send your own materials. But again, that's more about making sure it makes sense. Your PhD advisor should know you're about to spend I think even for short programs, there tends to be letters of recommendation for graduate students and postdocs. Mm-hmm.
So this is only for the U.S. citizens, though, yeah, or
Everybody.
when everyone does this?
Everybody, yeah, everybody can participate, yep. And so, yeah, all the applications are the same for everybody. So I have these out here. Why? Nominations and invitations. So there's a couple of exceptions. There's one institute has graduate workshops, short programs, only for graduate students. And so you don't apply for those, you have to get nominated. So that's just a weird sort of process, but so you get nominated by the department. So that's just sort of one exception. The other, invitations. Occasionally for one of the institutes for a long program, it's by invitation and not an application process. So the organizers get together and just invite who they want to participate. Those are exceptions, so I sort of have them over there, but I do want to talk about them. Timeline, so the program starts for the long program. The application opens as early as 18 months, but maybe it's as late as 8 months, less than a year, to first hear about the long program and for applications to open. Short programs, usually about a year, you'll hear about a short program. Sometimes as late as 2 months right before the program starts. Occasionally, something comes up quick, and we just want to get it out quick, and so it comes up in, 2 months just before. Most of them are planned well in advance, but every once in a while, we have one of these board meetings, somebody has an idea, let's push it through and get it out really quick. That happens. Sometimes deadlines are hard, so you'll see on the individual websites, applications due, bam. And submitting an application after that is, you can, it doesn't shut down, but if there's a hard deadline, you should follow it. Many times, the application process just remains open until all the space and the funding's used up, especially for short. Most of us have, there's only so many people that can fit in this room. So let's say, you're having a short program and most of the events are going to be in a room like this. Well, you could actually run out of space before you run out of funding. Because sometimes people fund themselves, actually. So then you have local people. With short programs, there's, you can just drive in every day, right? You register and take up a space, but not really funding. Okay, key elements of a strong application. So the big piece is just making sense of how you would benefit from the program. So I'm just going to give it away. So a connection to an organizer for sure. So if you're out there and you know one of the organizers, please mention that in your application. You've worked with them, they invite. Just don't, there's lots of applications. Some organizers are more organized than others. Not all organizers are organized, so they may not remember that they encourage you to come. So just go ahead and mention it in your statement. So research interest overlaps with the program. All of these things are kind of saying the same thing. You just got to make sense of how you would benefit. Evidence of some knowledge, not expert knowledge. Don't feel like you have to know everything about anything going on in this field to participate and stuff, but you know something or something that's closely related to it and you want to learn more about it. Demonstrated interest, so there's evidence of knowledge, but then there's demonstration of interest. So you've done some other things and I'm interested, I don't really know anything of that, but I did this past conference and spoke to this person, and these are things that sort of demonstrate interest. Descriptive, how an applicant can contribute or benefit. So I want to emphasize the benefit piece. Collaborations, some other people coming, and you'd like to sit and talk to them and, build a collaboration. Demonstration of sufficient background. So again, when people are reading the applications, you just have to sort of make sense of why you want to be there. When letter of references are required, which isn't often, but sometimes there's a letter of reference instead of a statement of interest. And so that letter of reference becomes pretty important because it kind of needs to turn into the statement of interest and stuff. So make sure that person's addressing all the stuff that are key elements to a strong application. The program, and then the last piece, like if you can make a case for getting back into research or wanting to enter this area of research, or, just explain why you want to be there. Okay. Key elements of a weak application is basically not having these things. So incomplete applications, right? So lack of background, not having done research in that program topic. You just don't want people reading going, what? Why do they want to come here? Like, what's going on? I mean, so you just got to help people see. Don't think it's going to be obvious. No overlap with the program, generic application materials. And these days, it's really easy to submit an application. Especially it's easy to submit a bad application, right? So everything's electronic, upload. And so we get sort of illegitimate applications quite a bit and stuff. So you don't want yours to look like that. CV that is far from the research topic. Again, you can make a case for why you want to be there, but if that's all they see is the CV and the statement of interest or letter from a reference doesn't explain it, then it's not so good. Funding. So, right, so we have funding to bring you here and stuff. So I wanted to sort of go through this. So there's transportation. So that's always paid up front by the participant and reimbursed. That's just sort of standard stuff, unlike, CAARMS. I mean, that doesn't always happen so nice like that. That's just sort of a standard practice. I think there's just too many concerns about people not showing up and stuff. What you can do is, for a short program, you'll probably get reimbursed 6 to 8 weeks after the week is over. For a long program, as soon as you land, you can submit that receipt and get it back, okay? So you don't have to wait until the whole semester is over or the whole year is over. You can even do it once you get there that week, but, so that's always paid up front. Accommodations runs the gamut. Sometimes, so especially with short programs, it can be just paid directly to the hotel. So you book, and it can vary. They book the hotel, you book it, leave your credit card, but as soon as you get there, get them to direct bill it and stuff. So I just wanted to have like a candid conversation about the real funding issues of being at an institute. For some places, you do pay the hotel and you're reimbursed later. But if you get an invitation, so you apply, at some point you get accepted to participate in a program, and it lays out the specifics of the funding. If you have some concerns about any of that, you should just contact the person. There's always contact someone if you have any questions. I just want to encourage you to contact, because there's always sort of exceptions to some of these rules and everything. Again, okay. And then for long programs, you get sort of a housing allowance and stuff, because again, this is tied to sort of renting a space and finding a space in a local area. And all of the institutes have ways to facilitate that. So because we've been doing this for a while, we have relationships with existing places that are used to housing our long-term participants. There's, Airbnb and all that stuff. So you get a housing allowance. So I think for most of them, it just comes monthly. You just get some sort of monthly stipend. There may be places where you can get that direct billed. Sometimes it's on campus, sometimes it's off, but accommodations, salary support and course buyouts, those do exist. They're limited, but they do exist. I suspect they're typically for organizers, but if you are, typically you tie this with a sabbatical appointment, right? So a long-term program at least. So no salary support or course buyouts for a week-long program, right? Yeah, okay. So we're talking, that's for the long piece and stuff. So those do exist, but without a doubt they're limited. All the institutes talked about how it's limited, but you should talk about that. Meal allowance for some short programs, and actually for some long ones too. It's just, and then dependent care. So typically this is sort of a separate application process, it's a separate form to fill out, dependent care, and that really runs the gamut Some places it's just for women, some places it's for everybody, some places it's because your kids are coming with you, some places it's because you need some support to leave them at home. Oh, yeah. So, so yeah, so typically there's some form to fill out, just basically saying what do you need, and then supplement it. Or take care of it. Some places have, some subsidized daycare places locally, so they'll connect you with that. But these are all, I just wanted to give you an idea of the funding practices, and so you know what questions to ask and what's available, what typically happens, and some exceptions.
You gave some insight in terms of, timeline to proposal to the actual program, starting for both short and for long. Is there a typical cycle, during the calendar year that RFPs go out?
Yeah, yes and no. Some places do. Some of the institutes have these hard deadlines where they're rolling out everything at once. Particularly the institute that doesn't have a short program, I know that's true. I say broadly it's rolling. It's just, it's really 12 months from the start date of that short program. So again, this is what makes it a little difficult to find opportunities, because you got to keep checking. There's not a one time of the year. Well, but because things are announced so in advance, I think you can sort of twice a year take a look or something. But yes.
So I'm going to tell you my vision for a program.
Oh.
I would like to have 20, 25 people show up, and a few people give a couple lectures or whatnot, and then kind of have discussions. That doesn't seem to fit in a short program, given the numbers of the amount of people I would want to have.
No, it does.
Okay.
I don't know what I said to give you that impression, so now you're stressing me out, but yeah.
You were saying 3 to 8.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thank you. So for this piece, so I would call that a mix of, so you're describing this and not just that. And so, because you're saying 20 to 25 people and sort of lectures in the morning or something like that, break out into groups. So you can create what those days, the idea is for you to create what you want those days to look like. Absolutely. So for instance, so I can name two pieces of language. I can't remember what MSRI calls this. But at ICERM, we have something called Collaborate at ICERM, so real transparent and easy and stuff. So you're not talking about a collaborate, you're talking about a workshop, what you're describing, 20, 25 people and stuff. This is, and we give you a big room to hang out in for a week. So you're talking about something bigger than that. You want our lecture space a little bit and spread out, at AIM, they call them squares. In Palo Alto, no, they're not in Palo Alto anymore. San Jose. And then other institutes call them something else. So the sizes of all these will vary. Yeah. And get bigger and bigger, actually, probably. Yeah.
Would you suggest bundling? So let's say if you have a bunch of initiatives, that are going on, let's say teach professional development might be one. Another would be like a Woodard program. I have partnerships, with UNCF, and there's lots of experience that are going on in all of those spaces. By the way, I'm looking for more of us to go ahead and be involved. But that said, would that be something that would be strategic to be bundled, or should I disaggregate, that and?
I think you have to be a little careful. It depends on the bundle. It needs to feel focused. You've got all of these things ask you to list goals and stuff. So, and those goals need to be measurable. It needs to feel focused. So I'm not going to say completely no, but you have to, I would guess you have to be a little careful. You don't want a hodgepodge of, this is all the things I'm doing, and stuff. It needs to feel focused. And, in any ways that you can tie it to these things. So, and I'm going to tell you where you can find these listed, but I should have put a screen up. I'm probably pushing this too
And
fast.
if you do disaggregate, can one institute get multiple funding streams?
So you just make sure they're different. We do talk to each other. So this does happen, that the same proposal gets sent multiple ways. So
I mean, but you
it's
can
not a
have
good
multiple
look.
programs, as long as there's firewalls, maybe not firewalls, that's overstating it, but, as long as there's concentrations that, fit the criteria of whatever the program lead or head is, an institute can go ahead and apply to multiple programs.
Yeah, if you do it carefully, that's possible. And we do work with each other. I mean, I think there's some perception that we're competitive, but we've gotten proposals. An institute has gotten a proposal and said, you know what, I actually don't think it's the right fit for us. This really sounds like ICERM, and they punt it over to, I'm at Morehouse now. I'm trying to use sports analogies, but I always fail all the time. But, over to another institute. We do that a lot. Well, I won't say a lot, but it happens. It happens. Sometimes our calendar is just booked, but this is a really good idea. We'll find like, oh, can you guys do this? So we do work collaboratively most of the time. Yeah. What I didn't talk about today, but I can talk about offline, I was just, because my goal for today, I mean, and this hasn't been as much of a discussion as, I'm glad you guys have interrupted me, but I do want to understand what the stumbling blocks are. So I think some of the questions have addressed that, and I do want to help you navigate through these stumbling blocks, because I think the institutes are really premier, cool places to hang out and stuff. So, and I can't tell if we just kind of don't know about it and the logistics and like, is this really for me? But I really think it's important. So I want to understand better what we need to talk about to encourage applications from African American researchers. So I didn't talk about public events. All kinds of public institutes do public events, K through 12 outreach. I didn't talk about that. Absolutely programs for undergraduates. I just didn't talk about that today. I didn't talk about proposing a program, even though Jamal asked some questions about that. So I think the next time I do this talk, I'm going to actually talk about that a little bit more, because you can propose programs. You don't have to just get invited and apply to programs, right? I mean, whether it's short or long. So I didn't talk about the logistics. When you go to each of our websites, there's a space that talks about how to apply, and there's a space that talks about how to propose a program. So you want to look for those two distinctions and stuff. And that means you're organizing the short work and deciding, going through the applications yourself, by the way. The directors of institutes look at those applications a little bit, but it's really the organizers that are sort of deciding who should participate. We also do just conferences, so like CAARMS at IAS, conferences and other activities from our core grant and stuff. So we'll get other funding to do something. Some people come with funding to be able to do something, because we have cool spaces and that can help facilitate it. And then we have staff and infrastructure that can help facilitate a program, even if you do already have the funding, because like maybe your funding's just for participant support or something. I also didn't talk about finding opportunities. I just alluded to it earlier that I think this is one of the hardest things to do, is like, how do I figure out of the 723 things going on this year at institutes, which things is a good fit for me. So there's the websites. So there is a mathinstitutes.org that all of the institutes participate in the content of. And my favorite page on this website is I think that says institutes. Up there, the tab that just lists all 8 of the institutes. And so because you may not remember what all 8 of them are, so you can just click one of these and it goes to their site, right? And then sort of navigate through that, short programs, long programs, and all that. People in your field, right? So if somebody, senior, junior people in your field, and asking people in your field, is there an institute program coming up? Like, what's going on? Mm-hmm.
So at one point you mentioned that there's an application process.
Yes.
You register. So once you register, are you registered for all of these?
Great question. That is a great question. Unfortunately, it's not a good answer. They're all separate systems, but I think that question's been coming up enough. I think we're going to start to have a conversation about an easier way for people to be able to access. There's not even a single online subscription. Like each of the 8 institutes had, you can go on their site and then get subscribed to new events and stuff. So that was one of my things to do. Maybe it'd be nice to have one subscription where you get from all of them. I don't know. I mean, even with the individual institutes, we're real careful not to send a lot of emails. We're real careful not to do that. So it's not a single shot into finding all the ideas, all the activities going on at institutes. I think you've got to spend some time on these sites.
So I think it takes time to get there, but I think you would see a benefit from there being some sort of unified front end.
Got it. Okay.
Just so people will start to understand that there's a one-stop shop where you can at least get plugged in.
Yep.
And if you want updates, you can have people opt into it.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to take that away. I think that's helpful. Because I do think this is hard. Because this site, I think, helps a lot, but you're right, single subscription. Okay. There's other things on this site, too, but I think they're more related to outcomes. NSF uses this site a lot to say what institutes are doing. So, but this is the page I think that's most helpful to applicants.
I'm still a bit I'm wrestling with, if when I see this page, if there would be a program that either exists at an existing institute in the 8, or you're looking to go ahead maybe create one at one of the 8 existing, institutes, this would be a good site to go.
This is a good site to remember what all 8 institutes are and easily click to get into the individual sites. Once you get to the individual sites, you'll look for the 2 areas where you can apply to a program or propose to a program. So, yeah.
So what if one
or propose a program.
So what if you wanted to go ahead and create the 9th one? Is there an opportunity?
Oh, yeah, sure. So that's an NSF website. So NSF funds these things. And so in fact, there's a cycle coming up next year. And so all of the institutes, so these don't live forever, all of the institutes will be submitting proposals to stay alive next March, and other folks will be submitting proposals to create a new institute next March. Yeah, every 5 years.
Okay.
Yes.
The research outcomes, is it something that's open source, or do you come to whatever can you keep the research?
You keep it, it's yours. Thank you for asking that. Yes, it's absolutely yours.
Something like if you're developing a proof of concept and using that, and you feel like you're developing a particular tool that you want to market in the marketplace, does the institute have any?
No. We just facilitate that work happening. That's our goal, is facilitate that. I mean, we'd like for you to thank us.
Of course.
That's it. These are nonprofit, yeah, we'd like a little shout out. We probably want to feature it on our webpage. Couldn't have happened unless they, no. Yeah. I think that's my last slide, so I can.
I was just going to say that, so first off, thank you for this.
Oh, good.
This was something that, I've been to ICERM, but I did not know that this infrastructure existed. I'm a practitioner, I'm outside of academia, so this is very helpful. One of the things I was thinking about is maybe you could model this as increasing levels of engagement, with the first step being awareness.
Yeah, okay.
The second step being participation.
Yes.
And then the final step being acceptance, and maybe, application.
Yeah.
Right. And there's kind of, looking at what you already have, since you have demographic information to a degree on the programs.
Yes.
And are there things that we can do, for example, to entice people? So maybe an example of an excellent, application is one that is purposefully diverse, You know,
Right.
maybe we're encouraging people who are currently, because if I know about this, I'm more likely to apply.
Right.
And certainly if I'm invited to somebody else's collaboration,
Right.
I'm
Right.
likely to apply.
Right.
So maybe thinking about it in terms of
Right.
increasing levels of engagement,
Right.
what strategy you can employ in each phase.
Okay, let me make sure I heard what you said. Because I think you're talking about proposals, proposing a program, as opposed to applying to participate in a program.
Well, I'm talking, I mean, and yeah, it's probably 3 or 4, but I guess I'm just thinking in terms of before you even apply,
Yeah.
right? You have to first be aware that this
That's right.
is a thing.
That's right.
Right, and then, you know, the intermediary step is I did not propose to go to ICERM,
Right.
but someone else
That's right.
invited me.
Right. Right.
And you would want to see diversity
Right.
who gets invited to these
Right.
things. And every time you have someone in the building, you have a captive audience.
Right.
And if I've had this great experience at ICERM,
Yeah.
it's going to increase the likelihood I'm going to apply myself.
Okay.
And there's maybe a fourth step
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
the idea is increasing levels of engagement.
Right.
What are the things we can do based on what we already have?
Got it. Got it. So typically, this is the first time I've given a talk like this. I think anybody from the institute has given a talk like this, because what we typically do to try to recruit is talk about all the cool math. So I'd pick a few upcoming programs and sort of really talk about what's coming up to encourage. And so, which is great, but then there's the ones I didn't talk about, that when the people in the room and stuff. So I will keep doing those types of talks, and because I think they're important. So this was my sort of hypothesis. Like I don't think we have to convince people that there's cool stuff going on here. I felt like it was time to have a conversation about how to do it and the logistics and can I afford it? Like, how does this play out? Yeah. So, but I think we need to do both.
So I went to IPAM.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've been to ICERM. It's a beautiful space. So I went to IPAM for a workshop on traffic flow.
Uh-huh.
But I've noticed that if I wish that they would have told me that they were going to have
Along.
subsequent workshops on that same topic, because I certainly would love to go back out
Right.
to LA.
Right.
And so is there a way to kind of, I already went there, I'm sure you guys have my email. It'd be
Wow.
nice if they could just send, hey, here's an update of, here's all the programs that are happening in the next month, or, send out a monthly newsletter that says, here are all the institutes, here are all the programs that are happening, here's how you apply. And I certainly would have went back.
Right.
Well, I mean,
Like a what?
there's not that.
Well, and tied to the topic too. That's what you're saying is tied to the topic.
So I'm already in, and they had 3 workshops, and so it'd be nice if they just sent a message saying, okay, you went, dear Jamal, you went to the first workshop. Would you like to come to the second one? And so, I think that actually would be helpful, and more so, there is a math classification, and
Right.
so if we could sort of bucket people in those areas, if a
So-
workshop comes and spans that, then they could send out an email to people who are in those areas.
So we do that. So even though Bill did a great plug on the classification system and it's widely used, it's really limited because I think it's hard to find people that way. So there's a certain amount of that happening already. But I think that's not working. But to your point, okay, so let me push back on this a little bit. Now, you knew you did this cool traffic workshop. So I know Jamal a little bit, so I'll push back. But I won't do this to anybody else I don't know. But so is it that difficult to look back at IPAM's website and see what other traffic things are going on, or look at those organizers and okay, got it. No, I get it. I think finding opportunities is the tough thing, right? You miss it and you're like, damn, I didn't know that was happening last week. Yeah.
Another tool that you could probably use is something like Splashtag or Eventbrite or something like that. Because sometimes I find out about conferences just because my name is on like a group list.
That's
That's
true.
external.
Yeah.
So sometimes what people do is when they're having an event, they also link it to one of these open Eventbrite or something like that, and so those social media accounts, they just send that, it's like free advertising for you guys.
I wish my IT guy was here right now.
But the technology fix, to that,
Right.
the degree to which, like topics
Right.
across, like topics across different institutes, get participant information, so that way things can be disseminated by
It's
topic.
automatic.
It's automatic, exactly, through the tech
Yeah.
fix.
So at this time, I will not share how we do that now, so because that would be really embarrassing. But yeah,
Like, a lot of tech, because I'm in like technology conferences, so I'm in a lot of different groups. Meetup.com looks for things that's within that, and I just get random stuff. I get like events in Boston, and I was like, oh wow, this club gonna be there. Sign up, I'm going to San Francisco. I just do a little quick search, and I already got everything.
no, it's true.
My whole itinerary is already set.
It's true, and clearly the technology's there, right? Yeah. Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you. Because I do think that's the hardest thing, finding the opportunities in enough time that you can not only apply but figure out your own life to be able to get there. I mean,
In terms of giving a proposal for a workshop, so I know undergrads weren't on the list, but I think I have some very smart undergrads.
Yeah.
Are they eligible to partake in these workshops? Or is that a stretch?
That's a stretch. So, yeah, that's a stretch, even though there are some workshops that target undergraduate students that are for undergraduate. I've sent students to, Morehouse students to SAMC. They, I think, regularly have in their portfolio undergraduate workshops. Yeah.
And is there it'd be nice if there was like an example proposal on
Okay.
the website, or I don't know.
So let me say a little bit about the proposal process. It's not like NSF where there's a hard deadline, detailed solicitation, submit, wait 6 months to hear back. It's write an email to a director. Give me share with me your idea. Well, because I think it's sort of hard to navigate, okay, like what you said, like, am I this or am I that, or am I applying to this and stuff? So there is back and forth and conversation around it. And then we'll say, okay, write a 2-pager. So I think a lot of us call these stages a pre-proposal and then a proposal. So directors, part of our jobs is to get proposals ready to go to our board. And so the idea is, that is a great idea. Okay, this isn't ready to see the board. This is what I need. This, and this. It's missing this piece. It's not broad enough. It's too narrow. We'll give you that really concrete feedback and ask you to resubmit. We'll let you know when our board, so all of our boards meet the same time every year. And so we're getting them ready for that board to review. And so it's a lot of back and forth. And pretty consistently, I'm pretty sure all the institutes do this sort of back and forth piece. Even for the smaller things, but certainly for the longer things.
Just maybe go from a different angle more. So to get the word out, let's go to those board of directors.
Yeah.
So I know, for example, I put Bill on the spot. He's probably been involved.
Mm-hmm.
But how diverse are those boards? Because
Right.
it seems like a small group of people are deciding the program.
That's right. That's right.
So is there some small subset that fits the program? So
That's right.
are any of us or diverse voices?
So,
Those
yeah.
that can help disseminate or champion various.
Right. So at any point in time, they're more diverse than others. So one thing, these are, I want to say like typically 3-year appointments. So people aren't on these boards forever. They're not like, I don't know, church boards and college boards. Yeah.
How do directors at these institutes, are they also like shorter term?
Now that varies a lot. Some of them are permanent. And then others have a culture of rotating in and out and stuff. But all the boards, I think, I shouldn't say all, but for the most part, they rotate in and out. So one of the things with the board, so that's true, but that's kind of what makes it diverse, because you're right. One of the things that goes on is that we sort of share ideas and who do we need to solicit a proposal from and that kind of thing, right? And so that, of course, they name people they know. So we do try to make that diverse in every way, but people don't stay forever, so they're on and off. Yeah.
How often how often does the programs get refunded over and over again? It seems like, you know, my take on Fed money, you know, is that, you know, here's startup funding, you know, it's your task to go ahead and institutionalize, you know, become sustainable.
So now, these are, so yes, no, I mean, so NSF has a commitment, I think, is committed to having institutes, because my sense is they feel like this is a important, strong opportunity to do those 9 objectives. And they go to Congress every year and say, this is important and stuff. So now which institutes, right, that's sort of no guarantee. We all get external funding from other places. Some of the institutes are completely independent and not tied to anything else. MSRI is like that, AIM is like that, not tied to anything else. So, but we all work hard to get other funding. ICERM is very tied to Brown University, and you know, we like it that way. But you know, so there's different models for it. Yeah. How many of the institutes would exist if the funding was cut off? I mean, it varies. IMA is doing great. Well, doing well. They're existing. They're flourishing, even without it. So.
Math education.
It lives there.
Because it seems like that one gets shorted, particularly when it comes to research. You know,
Right.
It seems like it has a perception of being Mickey Mouse.
So it lives a little inside of one of those objectives. From institute to institute, it'll vary how they address that. I know some have really serious different education components, a director of education or something like that, that really addresses. So one of the things on my list, I didn't talk about K through 12 outreach in this. My sense is mostly those things aren't a part of an institution's core grant, but something else that they've decided to commit to do. And so it doesn't come from this 9 objectives from NSF about an institute, but it sort of gets incorporated. For instance, at ICERM, we do something called Girls Get Math every summer, which is a really fantastic, popular program. And so we're really proud of that, but it is funded outside of our core grant. And different institutes are doing different things, yes.
This is slightly off topic.
Sure.
But given the incredible anti-intellectual bent of our current administration, are you fearful for funding for the near and long-term future? As it seems as if you know, this is something that doesn't really hit the bottom line of our.
Sure. So we all had that same question recently when we met with NSF. Right.
Okay.
I kind of want to address. Oh, go ahead. You were.
I think one of the things that makes it very defendable is the fact that the funding is spread out across the country. So it's not something that is only, these institutes are not only in places that Donald Trump lost. They're all over.
Yeah.
So by having it spread around, like just the military funding and all that type of stuff, it's very difficult to extract from the budget. So although they could talk about it, but as much as, like, especially someplace like near Brown and all that type of stuff, but there's a significant constituency out there that is there to defend it.
Okay. So again, along those lines, I'm not a mathematician, I'm a physicist.
You're welcome at these institutes too.
But I'm working on a project presently that is funded by an organization called IARPA. It means Intelligence Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's like DARPA. And I'm working with a consortium of companies that are getting funded, actually from the government. And the important point here is, and it was shocking to me when I found out, there has been a substantial amount of funding set aside specifically for historically black university. When I say substantial, it's on the order of $12 billion. So a lot of this is because they realize that NSF typically don't give funding for, or historically black colleges don't get much NSF funding. So what they have, they've allocated this money, and there are certain projects that they want us to work on.
I see.
That is in the interests of national defense, so forth and so on. Projects that I couldn't work on a couple of years ago until I became an American citizen. So, you know,
Okay,
things like
got
that.
it, got it.
And so there is money there, and it is, yeah, and it's not a fair bit of money. The problem is it's a very competitive environment, and you have to go and compete for it. But it is allocated just for the kind of things that we're discussing. So, unlike what's been implied that there is no money, I think in NSF there's probably not a lot of money, but strangely enough, even under Trump, there is some funding, I mean a substantial amount of funding, but they are for specific types of projects.
Sure.
And the things that you have been discussing here, if you slant it properly,
Right, that's right.
you can actually get that
That's
kind of
right.
funding. So, for instance, the project I'm working on has to do with quantum computing. And the aspect of quantum computing that they're interested in is that quantum computing occurs at near absolute zero, 4 degrees Kelvin. How do you get those qubit information out to a standard CMOS silicon computer and not heat up the device and so forth?
Right.
So that's one of the projects that I'm aware of. The other one is they're interested in, we buy most of our chips now from abroad. They want a way to determine if the chips have firmware in it that we don't
Got it.
necessarily
Got
want. And various algorithms for deciphering code. The whole quantum computing thing is for code breaking, right? So if you want to do encryption, this is the whole point here. So, and a lot of this is very mathematical.
Sure.
And so that is an area that I think could be investigated, and I know that there is money there.
Yeah. Yeah. This is one of the big ideas that NSF is putting out. So yeah.
Along these lines, one comment I want to make is that one thing I noticed, okay, remember when there was that omnibus bill? You look very carefully what happened, you know, because it's not clear what's going on in the government, because it turns out in the earlier times when there was lots of money for research, no money was allocated to do research, for example, on issues of gun control. Okay. But in the age of Trump, when they passed that omnibus bill, what they snuck in for the first time is funding for research on issues of gun control. Okay. So you have to look, I mean, in fact, I guess a lot of funding was increased.
Yes.
For a lot of these agencies. So there are two levels, there are clearly multiple levels of government going on here. So it's not really clear, because I thought all these things were going to be slashed, and that didn't really seem to happen. And so I think what is clear is that research areas related to national defense, people behind the scenes are going to make sure the money gets there. It's just the question is it's a topic that's not really clearly related to national defense. That's probably another issue.
But it's not just if it's, we don't know a priori if it's related to national defense.
Right.
That's the whole, there's a lot of science that we do generally, that you and I have done at Bell Labs and I've done at IBM, that we thought was a national defense, but the government comes in and say, I like your algorithm, we're going to use it for this particular thing. So what I'm saying is that a lot of the work that we already do could be morphed into some scenario that the government can see use for it. They, for instance, one of the things that the same company I'm associated with is involved in is chemical detection, right? So of course these would be things that chemists do, but a part of it is like, you know, they want forewarning. If someone releases something like sarin, you want remote detection of that. But there's a lot of mathematical algorithms. So the organization I'm involved in, they didn't have the chemists with the skills, but they had the computer scientists that could do this. And computer science is mathematics, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So we need to just, a point I'm making, and I think what Bill is also implying is that we shouldn't, I'm like him, and I, like the gentleman here, I thought in the age of Trump everything was dead,
Right.
especially for us.
Right.
But it seems to have gone the other way.
Yeah. I think we need to keep pursuing these opportunities and.
One other thing, I just wanted to go ahead and chime in. I don't want to lose the opportunity to mention this. I want to drill down two things. One, drill down on education. Education, you know, is, you know, if you drill down in that, not math ed, you know, not math ed as in schools of education, you know, like training folk. You know,
Training people to.
have the skills necessary, you know, to go ahead and, you know, give more meaningful analytics, you know, more innovative algorithms, you know, the, you know, workforce development, you know, side of that. That's training oriented.
Yeah, so there are some of these shorter programs. So when I had that sort of spectrum, and I think I said learning a new topic. So that's, I think, the education piece. There's this new thing, people, I mean, whether it's coding, I mean, it's just, there are those pieces like that, yeah.
Sure, but that seemed like they're, you know,
But-
around the, you know, lack of a better way of putting it, on the fringe. You know, well-intentioned, you know, and resource, if I'm hearing you correctly. You know,
It runs the gamut. I mean, I think there are short programs that are sort of exclusively designed for that. So, but then I think all of them try to incorporate that. Even with the long programs, one of the things I mentioned was something called a tutorial. I mean, so it looks and can be called different things, but one of the objectives that people often have in proposing a program is bringing new people in and training them in a particular area and stuff. And so that is compelling and can be part of many things that go on in the program, a long program in particular. And then there can be, a short program is much more focused, so it can be exclusively designed to do that.
Just unpack that, because I mean, the longer term training, you know, is, you know, what was really underneath of the hood in terms of math ed. You know, math ed is more, you know, a Trojan horse, you know, training, you know, the skill set to be able to, you know, pursue leadership and careers, you know, in these fields, mathematical sciences, and more broad than that, that's the bigger play. You know, and just also, you know, the second thing was, you know, the STEM job, I'm, you know, several cycles into, you know, work with the United Negro College Fund, their national STEM director. You know, he's interested, you know, in, you know, these type of opportunities, you know, that are out there. So, you know, and it's kind of one-stop shopping, you know, for, you know, getting HBCU, you know, involvement. You know, they've been, you know, a big stakeholder in that space for a long time. You know, there's some deep relationships with that. You know, and there's pros and cons no matter, you know, whatever ecosystem one is in.
Okay.
You know, but to your point around HBCU targeted things, you know, we have a contact.
Okay.
You know, in our, you know,
Right.
immediate locus.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's follow up when we talk about it.
Okay.
Okay, so
Yep, we'll close out. So I'm around all week, yeah. If any other questions come up.